lot. Narratives were vaporous, and of the moment. Then, too, it is in the very nature of documents and artifacts that they tend to be preserved in a ratio commensurate with the social standing of the subject. Archives are seldom maintained for those of low social class. In order to reconstruct the lives of the working-class actors in this book, I have often had to rely on the words of literate middle-class witnesses who, as a group, condescended to those beneath their place. It is likely that their biases are embedded in their accounts. Given that, one should be suspicious, as I have tried to be, of many of my sources' historical accuracy. As a rule of thumb, disparaging views written by urban middle-class reporters about the urban hoi polloi should probably be dialed back a notch or two, sometimes even more. Still, and importantly, enough common ranting across a body of narratives likely indicates some underlying truth. Disorder has often been employed as a code word for prostitution, a social issue writ large in Demons of Disorder, as, of course, in this book, too. In fact, when I began the research for Everybody's Doin' It, I imagined a book that would be a comprehensive treatment of the demimonde's role in the development of American music and dance. I learned, without much effort and contrary to much commonly held wisdom, that prostitution was a large, highly developed urban industry throughout the United States from the Jacksonian era up to World War I. Furthermore, there was a mountain of documentation, some 43 city-commissioned vice reports from across the nation, for example, and I laid plans to climb it. In a pivotal conversation with Wendy Strothman, my agent, she suggested that I focus this book only on New York City. The logic was immediately compelling. I did not require much convincing, and the weight of the world lifted. But I still glance occasionally over more relaxed shoulders, and glimpse yet unwritten books, articles, and dissertations on sex, music, and dance outside of New York, and some still on sex, music, and dance in New York. For it turns out that it's a very big subject. If only the shuffle dance with this mortal coil weren't so damned insistent. A word on words. What are today acknowledged as highly derisive, deeply pejorative, bluntly racist terms were commonly used and printed in 19th and early 20th century America. Some of these show up here embedded in quotations. Their usage is a form of historical evidence, and I have reproduced them as written, but always with a flinch and a silent mark of anachronistic condemnation. Outside of quoted material, I have generally opted to use black when referring to African Americans, for it was a relatively benign word in common usage during the period of this study, and remains so today. Another linguistic problem arose when referring to those of homosexual orientation. Again, there were plenty of offensive contemporaneous terms to choose from, and several of these regrettably show up in quoted matter. Of the less offensive, homosexual, or homosexualist, received some ink in the 1910s, but usage was halting and infrequent. Furthermore, the word was then a quasi-medical term implying sexual deviancy. Given that, it would not suffice, and I moved on to other choices. Derogatory references to a homosexual queer were increasingly common in the early 20th century. It is, of course, a word that today is in the process of shedding its slur, but terms of derision are sticky, and sadly, there's still some molt to go. Gay was not a word that alluded to homosexuality during the period of this book. It is, however anachronistic, the term that carries less negative baggage in today's world, and it is the word I ultimately adopted and have used throughout. There is no perfect or easy solution here. Know that I